Hello everyone, welcome you all in this video lecture. So in this video tutorial, we are going to discuss about bacterial meningitis. So let's start with the introductive part. So before moving to the topic, let's understand some basic facts about the bacteria and the condition of meningitis. So basically the bacteria are considered as oldest life forms in the earth. They are unicellular single-celled organisms which belong to the phylum Prokaryotes. So we know that prokaryotes are a type of organisms which are not much evolved as compared to eukaryotes. The prokaryotic cell have not a well-defined nucleus, and also they lack several cytoplasmic organelles also. So bacteria are one of the organisms which are from prokaryotic organisms, and they are found everywhere from extremely hot conditions to very cold conditions. Basically bacteria can found in different shapes, like they can found rod shaped, spherical, coma shaped, spiral, and many other shapes like filamentous and many others. They are of basically two types according to the composition of their cell wall, which are gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria. Now the bacteria are harmful also, and they sometimes also function as beneficial bacteria for us. So there are several bacteria which are harmful or which are pathogenic and cause several diseases in humans as well as in other cellular organisms. So let's understand that what is the meningitis. So basically the meningitis is an inflammation of the fluid and membranes surrounding brain and spinal cord. So it is a type of disease caused in the membranes or affect the membranes of brain and spinal cord, which are commonly called as central nervous system, and it is caused by bacteria which can be deadly and require immediate medical condition. So the bacterial meningitis are type of meningitis which is caused due to the bacteria. So let's understand some characteristic features of bacterial meningitis. So it is the most common form of meningitis which is caused due to several common types of bacteria, and it is the most serious type of meningitis which can lead to death or permanent disability. It is considered as very serious condition. In this condition, some of the people with the infection dies, and death can occur in as little as in some hours only. And in other most of the conditions, the patients surviving by bacterial meningitis undergo permanent disability due to the bacterial meningitis. So it affects the meninges or the membranes which surround the brain and the spinal cord of the organism. They are commonly called as central nervous system. So according to the report 2006, the mortality rate for bacterial meningitis was 34%. Now let's discuss about the causes of bacterial meningitis. So there are several types of bacteria which can cause meningitis in humans in as well as other higher organisms. And these leading causes in the organisms include Streptococcus pneumonia, Neisseria meningitis, group 2 Streptococcus, Haemophilus influenza, Listeria monocytogenes, and E. coli. Among all of these, there is a bacterium called as Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which also called tuberculosis or TB, is the less common cause of bacterial meningitis, which is also called as TB meningitis, but is caused very less frequently. Now, many of these bacteria can also be associated with other serious illnesses or diseases, like Streptococcus pneumonia also causes pneumonia in organisms, and Haemophilus influenza is also a pathogen for influenza, and E. coli also caused several gastrointestinal problems in higher organisms. So now let's understand about the risk factors for bacterial meningitis. So basically it can cause in any age group like in adults, child or in older age group. But according to the data, the babies or the infants are at increased risk for bacterial meningitis as compared to the people of other age groups. Now the another risk factor are the certain medical conditions. So basically some medications or some surgical procedures put people at increased risk for meningitis. Like if if a person which have HIV infection or which is suffering from AIDS or other cerebrospinal fluid leak or not having a spleen can increase its risk for these bacterial meningitis. The another risk factor is contact with meningitis causing pathogens. So several microbiologists or geneticists or other scientists and researchers which work with the contact of these meningitis causing pathogens or bacteria which cause meningitis are in the increased risk for these bacterial meningitis. So they are caused by several bacteria and they can be spreaded in the gatherings. So the gatherings like in college campuses and many other gatherings also increase the risk for the spread of these meningitis in organisms. Now let's discuss about the methods of spreading meningitis or how this bacterial meningitis spreads among the population. So it is a spreading disease and we know that bacteria can spread by any of the methods like from air, from contaminated food, by contaminated air or contaminated water and by many other means. So basically it can be spread by several means like it can be spread by mother to child during birth or also during feeding. And it can be also spreading by food, contaminated food or by air like during coughing and sneezing and during contact with the patient which is suffering from bacterial meningitis. And it also caused or also spreaded by contaminated food. Now let's understand about the signs and symptoms of this disease. So basically the most common signs of bacterial meningitis are fever, headache and stiff neck. And among all these there are some other symptoms such as nausea, vomiting, photophobia, altered mental status which is also considered as confusion and fatality and many other factors. So basically in some cases patients suffer from photophobia in which the eyes being more sensitive to the light. And in the case of some newborns or infant they may not have among all of these signs or symptoms. So it may be difficult to notice or to diagnose the bacterial meningitis in these children. So basically these children have symptoms like they may have irritated or they have inactive, they can be slow or they can be vomit, feed properly and many other signs which can be diagnosed by bacterial meningitis. Now let's understand about the diagnosis of bacterial meningitis or how it can be diagnosed. So basically it is a bacterial disease or it can be diagnosed by blood samples or cerebrospinal fluid of the patient. With the help of several blood tests, the bacterial infections or bacterial meningitis in the particular cellular organism can be diagnosed. Now after that, what is the treatment for this meningitis? So as we have discussed that it is caused by bacteria. So it can be cured by different types of antibiotics and they are treated by a number of antibiotics by doctors. But it is very important to start treatment as soon as possible because they are very serious disease which can cause death and also cause permanent disability. So there are a number of antibiotics like penicillin, erythromycin and many other antibiotics which are used to treat bacterial meningitis in the organisms. Besides treatment, it is also very necessary to take necessary preventions from these meningitis. So the methods of prevention include vaccination for all these bacteria like the meningococcal vaccines which help protect against Neisseria meningitis which is causing agent for these meningitis, and also a vaccine named as pneumococcal vaccines which also help to protect against Streptococcus pneumoniae. And the another prevention method is called as prophylaxis. So basically what happens that when a doctor recognized or a doctor diagnosed a patient with bacterial meningitis, so it recommend the antibiotics to help prevent people who are around the patient from getting sick, and this phenomenon is called as prophylaxis by doctors. Among all of these, several healthy habits like healthy food, walk and many other exercises and other healthy habits which are used to take preventions by these bacterial meningitis.